afternoon. Welcome back to the YouTube channel Goofy Investing, where we talk about investing in the stock market. And we look at different angles that a lot of investors don't look at. So, another video about Sofi. I know I posted one not too long ago, but something that I've identified needs to be brought to light that may affect future growth in the actual member segment and products to be utilized potentially in the future from financial product services such as investment banking and so forth. So, without further ado, why are we here? What is this all about? Let's get into it. Let me pull this up real quick. Bear with me. Okay, so what this is right here is a deposit slip that's being put on hold. Now, I'll tell you what's going on. When I started my investment into SoFi, I told my wife to open an account and do direct deposit, open the savings, and report back to me on what it's like to be a customer at SoFi. All right, this is part of my due diligence, and this is what I do when it comes to my investments. I go in and I'm on the there's an aspect where I'm on the ground looking at different angles and so forth. All right, so she's got direct deposit. This is not a direct deposit being withheld. This is just a basic transfer from another bank account being put on hold from SoFi. So she tried to transfer from some funds from another bank, as you can see, 1,500, and they put 1,300 on hold. And this was March 8th, and then they said the funds will be available March 13th. All right. This is not let's not get this mistaken. This is not like a consumer complaint video. All right. This is you know, we're opening, we're putting ourselves in the consumer's shoes, the customer's shoes, and we're anticipating how the customers are going to react to whatever products, services, or what have you. All right. So this is not the first time that something like this has happened with my wife and SoFi. So if it's happening to her, I think it's happening to other SoFi members. All right. Now, I understand I understand there was a bonus to do the deposit, in direct deposit. You get a bonus for opening up a checking and savings, and we'll give you the 4 point, whatever percent for interest rate on the APR, and that's pretty compelling. Now, the question is that compelling enough for the customer to stay? That might grow new members, but does that, customer growth and new accounts is one thing, customer retention is another. I will say this, SoFi is they're they're catering to more the upper middle class, maybe the more affluent customer. um you know my thought process is the customer gonna be able to tolerate this type of stuff, or they're going to get a little, pissed off and say, well, wait a minute, you're holding thousands of dollars worth of funds for a certain amount of time, and that's not cool. I'm supposed to have confidence that I can withdraw my money at any time. I don't know, buy some food at any time or buy something at any time. Um, but instead, it's on hold. Now, why are these holds be happening? Well, I think that the bank is stretching the liquidity, right? So, I mean, in order to stretch the liquidity in time and space, this is one tactic they can use to, let me let me place these funds on hold so I can, borrow from Peter to pay Paul, and they're doing that little balancing act that a bank does, right? So I see that, and maybe that's a reason why they're doing this type of stuff. And maybe they'll put the front up like, oh, this is a security precaution. We're holding the funds, whatever, what have you. All right. It doesn't matter. What matters is the customer and the actual retention of the customer. All right. So, um, and I don't really care about the 1500s. It's my wife, whatever. You know what I'm saying? We got plenty of liquidity laying around. All right. So with the bond raise, all right, they had the convertible bond raise. I mean, you think about this. They had a convertible bond raise. I think there's a lot more of this stuff happening with the customer accounts, with deposits being, placed on hold. Maybe the tax returns kick in and a lot of the tax returns start getting placed on hold when the customers may have plans for that tax return money. I don't nowadays. I don't even get a refund. I actually owe money every year, so but anyway, I do remember back once upon a time where I used to get refunds, and I would be like, oh my gosh. And I know you're not supposed to count your eggs before they hatch, but usually I would have a plan for that refund. What I'm getting at is I think customers that have those refunds coming in may have a plan for the refund for when it kicks in, and they don't necessarily. It would probably piss someone off if their refund got placed on hold because they had plans for it. Maybe they needed a new set of tires on their vehicle, or maybe there's some sort of dire issue where they needed that money. And if they can't trust the bank, and when it comes to this stuff, they're gonna just go somewhere else. I don't care if the bank is given 4% interest on funds or whatever. So I mean, if the customer, and if any investor out there challenges that this is not something to look at and it doesn't mean anything, I think they're oblivious. I say they're ignorant investors. They don't know what they're doing. All right. So that's just my take. I don't want to sound rude, but it's their capital, it's their money to lose, and I got my own capital that I deploy how I see fit. All right. So I wrote a letter to, or I wrote an email. Technically, I wrote an email to investor relations, and I'd like to pull that up real quick. All right. It says, "Good afternoon. I'm a long-term investor and shareholder of Sofi. As a shareholder and part of my due diligence, I told my wife to open checking and savings and start direct deposits and report back her experience as a customer to me. There have been a couple times some fund transfer deposits from her other bank have been put on hold or frozen. Please don't mistake this email as a consumer complaint or anything of the nature, as we have enough liquidity laying around. That being said, these fund holds have stopped her from transferring her brokerage or using the SoFi investing platform due to lack of trust. My investor relation question is how frequently are these holds being placed on member transfers? And most importantly, are you seeing this affect member growth, retention, and projections thereof? Does the company make judgment calls on pushing the threshold on how much funds can get tied up during these holds based on a member's affluency? Although a lot would disagree with me from the macro perspective, I'm projecting employment turbulence, layoffs to hit in late Q3, and don't think the Fed is going to lower rates until Q4. Given the recent issuing of convertible bonds and seeing little tell signs like the inquiry above, another investor question is, are you all prepared with enough liquidity in this scenario?" And then I put a little screenshot or attachment of that thing that I just showed you, the little on hold slip. Now, that question on the members of fluency, pretty much what I'm asking is, does SoFi look at a bank account and they say, you know what, you know, this person has a good amount of money here and they have this transfer coming in. It's probably not going to be a big deal if we put a portion of those funds on hold. Like, it won't put someone in a bad spot, if you will. And it might not threaten, it might push the threshold of tolerance of someone getting pissed off to saying, oh, screw this, I'm out. That type of idea, if that makes sense. That's pretty much what I'm asking. Or do they just do it to everybody? It doesn't matter. All right. All right. So let's look at the balance sheet. Something else I noticed. All right. And this might come into play with stocks too in the general broad market. All right. So here's the quarterly balance sheet. We saw, we talked at last video, we talked about their cash and debt. All right. Let's go to a couple lines down that I've noticed. You see long-term investments have increased, all right, while trading asset and securities has decreased. In fact, it's decreased to the lowest amount, within the past, within the past 4 or 5 quarters. So we went from 79.2 million to 6.9 mil. All right. So that's a pretty steep drop in trading asset securities and move to long-term investments. I think SoFi is I think SoFi is anticipating stock market turbulence, and I think that there's some liquidity issues going on with SoFi. Given the whole scenario, the raising of the convertible bonds, the actual deposit transfers being put on hold to customers. They're trading asset and securities. The evidence kind of points towards maybe there's some sort of liquidity issue, and that's why I emailed SoFi, about their liquidity position. The actual email on the description for the subject is, SoFi's liquidity position. Okay. That's what I have. Now, what am I doing with my shares? Am I buying, selling, holding, whatever? I'm holding my shares. All right. I got a little more character. I don't sell in the first little. No, I investigate. I look at something. I gather whatever evidence or whatever data I can. I inquire about it. I look more into the details, and then I make a projection on how bad it's going to affect the numbers and my future projections and price targets, etc. All right. So, I don't think that this is a thing where, oh my gosh, everybody should sell their shares. No, it's just something that I think is a risk, that could be an upcoming risk, or something that's happening that, a lot of people are not seeing and a lot of other investors are not seeing. All right. With that being said, that's pretty much all I had. I'm still bullish on SoFi, but I think this could be a potential threat to member growth and retention, and potentially, users starting to translate into buying different products, investment products, CDs, whatever. So with that being said, yeah, that's pretty much what I had on SoFi. Comment down below on what you all think. Um, do you think that this is an issue or no biggie? All right. What do you think about? Do you think the Fed's going to raise in Q3, or I'm sorry, going to cut in Q2, Q3, or what have you? When do you think the Fed's going to cut interest rates? How do you think it's going to affect SoFi? Um, and also, plug for the Patreon. I got my Patreon up and running. There's a lot of exclusive content that I'm starting to add on there. So there's a lot of value driven for that. So be sure to take a look at that. And be sure to, if you're getting value out of this channel, please like and subscribe. All right. With that being said, enjoy the rest of your day and the rest of your week.